If you've seen the movie Spotlight, and if you haven't seen the movie Spotlight, you should. You know how the story of the Catholic sex abuse crisis goes and how it was discovered. The reporters of the Boston Globe Spotlight team and the Boston Globe in general, after initially screwing up and playing ball with the Catholic Church and burying the story of the Catholic sex abuse crisis in Boston, trying to protect the Catholic Church. In the summer of 2001, got a new editor named Marty Barron, who had read a story by, I think it was Maureen McNamara, writer, Boston Globe reporter Maureen McNamara. And Marty Barron charged the Globe Spotlight team with investigating the story behind the story. Was there more to the story that Maureen McNamara wrote in the Boston Globe in the summer of 2001? And the movie Spotlight chronicled basically the fall of 2001, really almost, basically exactly 20 years ago. If you know the movie, I think this is, the reporters are back on the story after September 11th. They've gotten the documents, and now they're starting to understand the magnitude of the problem. That's where we are in the movie. That was all happening basically exactly 20 years ago. But what happened next? What was it like to see one of your favorite people, your favorite priest from your childhood, named as a sexual abuser? In my case, in the New York Times. So the Boston Globe Spotlight articles ran very early in January 2002. A few weeks later, the New York Times ran a piece that named Father Leroy Valentine, my favorite priest from my childhood, one of my favorite people from my childhood, as an abuser of children. I don't know how the New York Times ended up in St. Louis, but they did. Which, it's no exaggeration to say, rocked my world, although I didn't realize it at the time. So I went to my archdiocese, the Archdiocese of St. Louis, for help understanding what my memories meant, what people were saying about Father Valentine. I called into a hotline and got a call back from a man who I've known all my life, my friend the Cardinal, and not the baseball kind. We had a couple of conversations. I told him what my memories were, what I remembered about Father Valentine, and he immediately, without any investigation, told me nothing happened, my memories didn't mean anything, that it was impossible, that the allegations against Father Valentine were impossible, that there was no truth to them. And because he was my friend, I had served for him when I was a child. He was an auxiliary bishop of the Catholic Church, on his way to being a cardinal, now is a cardinal. I believed him, and I just went on with my life. And I'm on my way to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops meeting in Baltimore, Maryland. It's November 15th, 2021. The meeting, if it isn't beginning right now, is beginning a little bit later on today. I'm about 2.5 hours outside of Baltimore, Maryland, where the meeting is being held. And I'm going to that meeting of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops with a number of goals. One is to try to talk to my friend the Cardinal and try to understand why he told me what he told me coming up on 20 years ago. Now, one of the things that you may think you know in terms of the Catholic sex abuse crisis is the response of the Catholic Church. The Spotlight articles led to the Dallas Charter in 2002, which put into place a lot of policies and procedures, but the whole question is whether those policies and procedures are going to be followed. This is the Catholic Church we're talking about. And the problem that I'm having, and that I'm trying to bring to the attention of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the bishops there, and hopefully the papal nuncio who's in D.C. The problem is that in June 2019, Pope Francis enacted a law called VOS Lux Mundi, Latin for "You are the light of the world." And VOS Lux Mundi, or just VOS, contained in Article 5, among other things, a Bill of Rights for survivors. It laid out what dioceses and archdioceses should do and not do for and to survivors of the Catholic sex abuse crisis. It hasn't yet been written into canon law, but it was a supplementary document that had the force of law in the Catholic Church. That was over 2 years ago. And VOS Estis, and this is one of the things that gives me a sense of urgency, one of the reasons I'm going this year and why I'm going now. The problem is that VOS Estis has an expiration date. It expires at the end of May 2022. It's on a 3-year term. Maybe it'll be renewed, maybe it won't. But the bigger problem is that my Archdiocese of St. Louis is not following VOS Lux Mundi. The Archdiocese of St. Louis terrorized me in 2018. And the problem is the Archdiocese of St. Louis continues to terrorize me despite VOS Lux Mundi, the Pope's Bill of Rights, prohibiting such actions. So what I'm doing is I'm driving from St. Louis to Baltimore. I'm almost to Baltimore to attend the meeting of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and to try to talk to people, bishops, the press, survivors, supporters, whoever, to let people know about the problem with VOS Lux Mundi, at least in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. And I doubt that St. Louis is unique. I doubt that St. Louis is the only archdiocese or diocese that is failing to enforce VOS Lux Mundi. I doubt I'm alone. So in some ways I'm representing, well, if you believe the numbers coming out of France, which I do, I'm representing hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million or more survivors in the United States. It was great that Pope Francis passed VOS Lux Mundi. Gave me tremendous hope. But the fact is, it was a false hope. I've sent 10 letters to the Pope via the papal nuncio and via the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, letting the Pope know that the Archdiocese of St. Louis is in violation of VOS Lux Mundi, that the Archdiocese of St. Louis refuses to abide by VOS Lux Mundi. I've heard nothing in reply, which doesn't really surprise me. This is the Catholic Church we're talking about. But so many people talk about and talk up Pope Francis that I wanted to believe that things were better, that things were different with Pope Francis, that he was a different kind of Pope, a different kind of person. The problem is that I see no evidence of that. And the worst part is I can't get Catholics to even want to know about VOS Estis Lux Mundi. They don't seem to want to know. The press doesn't want to talk about it. Lay Catholics don't want to talk about it. Even survivor supporters don't want to talk about VOS Estis because it's a failure. It's a sham. I hope it's not a fraud. It may very well be a fraud. But that's why I'm going to Baltimore to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops meeting to sound the alarm, to notify the bishops of the Catholic Church that there's a problem with the Archdiocese of St. Louis and how they treat survivors. Now, theoretically, the way the Catholic Church works is that my Archbishop, Archbishop Rosansky, only reports to the Pope. But there is this concept called fraternal correction, and you would think that bishops would care what other bishops are doing. They're all part of one big entity, and they're part of one big, larger church, one church body. So I'm driving from St. Louis to Baltimore, almost there, with the goal being to sound the alarm, to let people know that there's a problem with VOS Estis Lux Mundi. It's not being followed by the Archdiocese of St. Louis. It's not being enforced by Pope Francis. I want to let the church know so that the church can do the right thing. But if the church won't and refuses to do the right thing, at a minimum, hopefully I can talk to the press. We have a saying in Missouri, where I'm from, "Show me," which acknowledges that talk is cheap. And right now, VOS Estis Lux Mundi, the Pope's Bill of Rights for survivors, is nothing but empty talk. I'm going to Baltimore right now to the USCCB 2021 to try to talk to someone, to try to notify them, to try to let them know that VOS Estis is not working. We'll see what I find out.